Welcome to the Nuggets Inc. podcast. I'm Bennett Durando, the Denver Nuggets beat writer for your local newspaper, the Denver Post. We've got a great episode coming up for you. Not exactly a cheery episode. We're talking about the Nuggets' unfortunate off-season dilemmas that they are facing as far as their roster, their payroll. Where do they go from here after a first-round exit against the Minnesota Timberwolves without Anthony Edwards by the end of the series? Do they trade Jamal Murray? Do they trade Aaron Gordon? Do they rethink the structure of their starting lineup around Jokic next season? Is this all really just a shameless ruse to duck the tax? We'll get into all of that and more up next. And we are back. It's the Nuggets Inc. podcast presented by the Denver Post. I'm Bennett Durando, your host, the Nuggets beat writer for the Denver Post, and I'm joined today by, of course, our former sports editor, Matt Schubert, who is going to explain to us why he still thinks the Nuggets are going to win this series against the Timberwolves.
Okay, all right.
How are you doing, Matt?
I don't think we needed that shot.
You're still convinced, right?
I don't think I was even in the minority in believing that. I think most people thought, especially once Io is out, how are they going to lose this series? How is this going to happen? It did.
Didn't even get to 7.
Unbelievable. That is maybe the most stunning result of all of the Nuggets playoff flops. I can't think of another one that was worse.
We're here to talk about the Nuggets offseason, of course, but I do want to ask you this. Do you which is worse? The 2024 Timberwolves loss or this one?
This one.
Really?
Yes.
I think it's 24.
No, and I'll tell you why it's not 24. First of all, 24, it actually was a 7-game series, so it won all 7. Yeah, it was coming off of a championship run where they had just played a ton of games, and they had played a ton of games the year before that.
Okay, you're talking like moral victory points, right?
No, I'm laying out why. So that was a bad one. They collapsed in the second half, right? Mm-hmm. And if they win that one, who knows? Who knows what happens?
Exactly.
But that being said, they just lost to a Timberwolves team that didn't have Ant, didn't have Io for the last game, didn't have Dante DiVincenzo for the last 2 or 3 games. Mm-hmm. That is unforgivable, and they're fully healthy. They were a healthy team, other than AG.
It might be a more inexcusable loss, the 26 one. But they could have won the championship in 24. If they hold on to a 20-point lead in the second half of Game 7.
Do you think they beat the Celtics?
I think it would be an awesome series. It's funny, we've been, these two teams have kind of danced around each other for the entirety of the 2020s, and they've never quite met in a finals, which is pretty disappointing. And I think it's looking increasingly unlikely that they ever will face off in a finals.
Well, certainly they will not the same iteration of the last 5 years.
Yeah, particularly after they were both kind of embarrassing first-round exits this year.
And I'll say this, the Celtics seems worse to me of the two.
Interesting.
They were up 3-1.
So the Nuggets' 26 loss to the Wolves is worse than their 24 loss, and yet the Celtics'
Correct.
loss to the Sixers is worse than both.
Did you just see what happened to the Sixers in the second round?
Yeah. Minnesota in 24 went on and got beaten 5 by a 4-seed Mavericks team. 5-seed, whatever they were.
Yeah, but that was Luka, at
I don't
apex
know.
Luka. I think. Listen, did you see the starting lineup that the Boston Celtics trotted out for Game 7?
It was questionable.
They just did a lot of dumb stuff.
It was a little galaxy brain by Mazzulla, my vote for Coach of the Year.
Yes, that dude can't get out of his own way sometimes. Which you want to talk about another guy who can't get out of his own way sometimes. How about JJ Redick putting Rui Hachimura like shooting laser beams out of his eyes in the second half last night on the bench for the would have been the game-tying shot, and in favor of a guy who hasn't played the entire game.
So we're recording this morning after OKC advanced to the conference finals. They're through. The Knicks are through.
When's the last time Maxi Kleber did anything?
He set a pretty good screen that got Austin Reeves open for that three. That's why they put him in. You can't have 5 guys who are just out there to shoot with no one who you trust to get any of the other 4 open. You have to have at least one player who can get any of the other 4 open.
You don't think that Rui Hachimura can set a screen?
Clearly, JJ Redick trusts Kleber more to set the screen, and he set a good screen, and Reeves got a good look. So I'm kind of like, how can you complain too much about that decision when you got a decent shot to tie the game? It's kind of the same thing as Spurs Timberwolves game 1, where Mitch Johnson doesn't call the timeout, but they end up with a wide open 3.
I didn't question that at all. I thought that was the right move. They got a great shot. He probably makes that 50% of the time.
So what makes this different? If the result is a pretty good shot under the circumstances, when you know OKC is going to foul up 3 if you let a couple seconds pass.
I just don't understand why Maxi Kleber was in that game.
Because he got Reeves open.
I thought that was dumb. Anywho, we're here to talk about the Nuggets. Yeah. Yes, I do think that this is the worst of all of the playoff eliminations. They had a full roster. Yes, AG was banged up in that series, but everybody else.
And Christian Brown banged up,
but he was playing.
As has become a hot topic.
He was playing. Mm-hmm. Clearly not right. There was a point in it just was maybe one of the most dumbfounding plays I've seen by Christian Brown, where he got the ball in the paint and immediately dribbled out to the 3-point line. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And it was like, once you saw that, I was like, he's done. This guy is broken. There is something going on in his head, and he's going to need an offseason to fix it.
Well, yeah. So there's something going on in his ankle, something going on in his left calf, and something going on in his head as a result, for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see his comments to me that became a little bit of a
bring it back? Let's
talk radio thing. He said he was taking accountability for the loss, and he said, you can put it on my shoulders, basically, and it's completely unacceptable. And I said, why do you say that? And he answered, I just think I'm the leader of this team. I'm the vocal leader of this team. And people in Denver were not thrilled by that comment. I thought people overreacted to it a little bit.
I mean, that's wild that he would say that, but at the same time, I don't mind somebody having that mindset.
If you pay attention, he breaks the huddle a lot of the time. He is literally the vocal leader in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. When the Nuggets are huddled together during the course of a game or before a game or after a game. So I think that's what he meant by it. I think the quote was received as sort of an act of delusion by him about his talent and role relative to the other players on the team, when it was more so meant as a gesture of accountability. But it nonetheless became a little bit of a interesting talking point, and then David Adelman kind of defended him in the end of season press conference.
I have to say, Nuggets fans have turned on that guy in a pretty significant way.
Brown or Adelman?
Brown. Well, Adelman. Yeah. Both, but Brown in particular. And Brown was like a darling. People loved Brown. Mm-hmm. It's really surprising.
This is the NBA though. And especially NBA Twitter and the way that all this stuff works, it is a deeply reactionary space where there's a lot of vitriol.
Why do I not see anything directed at Nikola Jokic? He had a bad series.
So this is the difference, I think. There's a lot of heat directed at Jokic nationally right now.
Yes.
And a lot of heat redirected at Christian Brown locally because Denver Nuggets fans who have so much emotional capital in Jokic specifically really don't want him to be the focal point of their blame. And to a lesser extent, Murray, although Murray, can always be a little controversial within the fan base, I think. But,
apparently he's on the trading block. I learned that last week.
We'll get into that shortly. But yeah, Jokic, I think fans are looking for other places to
he wasn't
express
good.
Their anger, and Christian Brown and David Allen have been the main.
What was his shooting splits for that series? What did he end up at?
It was bad. I don't have him right in front of me.
It was a bad series for him, and if you're going to win playoff series, you need your star players to play well. That is like the absolute baseline of what is necessary to win, and he wasn't good. If I'm like making a blame pie for what went on in that series, Nikola Jokic is getting a fair amount of it.
Yeah, so he averages 25.8 points, 13.2 rebounds, 9.5 assists. The raw numbers always look good with him.
What are the turnovers?
The turnovers, I don't see the per game turnovers, but he committed 23 in the series to 57 assists. So
not bad.
Not great either.
Yeah, not great, not bad.
Not his usual playmaking efficiency sort of rate.
And he couldn't
and his
hit
shooting
a three.
splits, as you alluded to, 44.6 from the field, 19.4 from three. He was 93% from the foul line.
That's good. But the thing is he was dreadful, and he wasn't even the floater that seems like it's like money in the bank whenever he puts it up. Mm-hmm. Even that wasn't falling with the regularity that you would expect from him.
Again, I would maintain the key moment of that series was him passing up the floater with game 2 on the line.
Yeah.
And a chance at least to force overtime, and maybe you win that game, and then you've held serve at home at the very least. Yeah. And it probably sets you up to where you're playing a game 7 at home against the shorthanded Wolves later in the series. So key moment, Jamal Murray, his splits were not much better, 35.7 from the field, 26.2 from three. Just a completely out of whack, uncharacteristic series for those two.
The irony that Jamal Murray's best regular season was followed by his worst postseason. That maybe he should start slow. Maybe, hey, Jamal, just take off October, November, December. Be ready for April.
And, of course, the larger theme, you have a team that led the league wire to wire in three-point percentage in the regular season, shooting 31.1% from three for the series. Pretty bad. Ironically, Christian Brown, 42.9% from three on low volume.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't take enough for it to be, effective. But
now they got to trade him to bring Peyton Watson back because Peyton Watson's all NBA talent.
Okay, so I'm glad that I'm having this discussion with you because you already kind of made this point the last time we recorded that you're pro run it back to the extent that they can. Josh Kroenke's press conference last week, he said that everything is on the table except for trading Jokic. He also said that running it back is on the table. I said, what do you mean run it back? Because if you actually run it back, this team is deep into the second apron, in addition to the repeater tax, which would cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. Not that fans should care about that.
No.
But it is relevant to the reality of the situation.
When's the last time the Kroenkes paid a heavy tax on the Nuggets?
So here's the thing. We kind of have to get into all this to really understand the dimensions of this offseason. They were a luxury tax team in 23 when they won the championship, 24 when they lost in 7 to Minnesota, and 25 when they lost in 7 to OKC. But
never a second apron team. Never.
They have not gone into the second apron since its existence under the new CBA. But they were a luxury tax team 3 consecutive years. They will point to those 3 years as evidence that they are obviously willing to pay for the talent on the court if they think they can win a championship. However, after the 3 years, the repeater tax becomes a factor here because you are subject to the repeater penalties if you finish a season in the tax after also having been a tax team for 3 of the previous 4 seasons. I know that sounds complicated, but what it basically means...
Is that over the first apron or over the...
No, just over the luxury tax, in general, because you have your 3 lines. You have your luxury tax, then the first apron is usually 7 to 8 million, higher than that, and then the second apron. So the luxury tax and the repeater tax, there's no roster building restrictions related to just being over the luxury tax. That is entirely tax bill financial penalties on owners. So the repeater tax was basically you're paying an extra rate on the dollar for each dollar you spend over the luxury tax, and it is designed to incentivize owners to not have expensive payrolls for prolonged periods of time. So the Nuggets pay the tax 3 consecutive years, but to reset their repeater clock, they have to finish 2 consecutive years out of the luxury tax. So that sets the stage for this last year where they trade MPJ for Cam Johnson. It was a move that, yes, did improve their depth and I think made their roster better, but it was also a move that set them up to be able to duck the tax at the trade deadline.
Well, if you ask Michael Porter Jr., it was the reason they lost in the first round.
Exactly. We probably don't need to get into that. If we could do an entire podcast reacting to what Michael Porter Jr. says on other podcasts, probably. But that would not be a great use of anyone's time. So they make that trade. They get a cheaper starting small forward in Cam Johnson. They use some of the extra money to get Jonas Valanciunas, but they still are basically decreasing their payroll out of that series of trades. I would say it was good front office work because on paper it made their roster better while also decreasing their payroll. However, it set them up to where they were very close to the luxury tax going into the season. If they finish this season over, they're a repeater tax team. So what do? At the trade deadline, they make a pretty harmless basketball move. They trade Hunter Tyson to Brooklyn in a salary dump. They're able to add Spencer Jones and Tyus Jones at prorated minimums for the rest of the year to fill their 15 roster spots, and they finish very slightly under the luxury tax. Congratulations, Stan Kroenke. Now, to actually avoid the repeater clock and reset it to where they can go back into the tax for another 3 consecutive years without incurring the additional tax rates, they have to finish next season out of the luxury tax as well. I asked Josh Kroenke very directly, is that impacting this? Do you want to get under the tax next season for repeater purposes? And he ducked the question. He ducked quite a few questions in his end of season presser about the tax.
That's kind of his way, though.
And about spending. I think that when we start to game out what this offseason looks like, we have to assume that they're going to try to get under the tax, at least at the trade deadline again. So we have to imagine that they want their payroll by the end of this offseason to be close to the tax and probably under the first apron. Because, again, like, fans can be mad at it. They probably should be. Like, it's frustrating to not be willing to just spend exorbitant amounts on a roster with Jokic at 31 to 32 years old. But their logic on this, if and when they get out of the tax, will be that it allows them to have more spending flexibility for the next 3 years after this, so they can go
on
more
the tail
suitably.
end of Nikola Jokic's prime.
Yes, their counterpoint would be during the course of the extension that he's very likely to sign this summer. So that sets the stage for all of this.
So who's taking Zeke Naji?
You honestly, it would help to be able to get off of Zeke Naji this summer. And so, I say all of this to preface with, they can keep Peyton Watson and they don't have to trade anyone. By rule in the NBA, they could re-sign Peyton Watson.
Because they have his bird rights.
They have his bird rights. He's a restricted free agent. They can match offer sheets. If they want, they can really like squeeze him and play it out if he doesn't get the interest from other teams. They can do that, and they can keep everyone, and they can be a second apron team and a repeater tax team and just be happy. And that is the best possible version of the roster, probably. But that is not the reality of what's going to happen. They are going to make concerted choices to try to, at minimum, duck the second apron, more likely duck the tax entirely, I think. So, Peyton Watson. First of all, I just want to ask you...
MVP in the next 5 years.
I just want to ask you, how much in average annual value would you be willing to pay for Peyton Watson?
I think it'd be somewhere near what they're paying Christian Brown.
Okay.
That's what I would go for, something around that. Here's the thing. I know he looked really great for a while, about a month and a half. Do you really want to make a big long-term commitment based upon that one chunk of time? I think there's just enough doubt there that hopefully you can convince him to take something that's close to what I think you would say is a role player salary, which is around $20 million a year, right? Like somewhere in that range. If you listen to national podcasts, this guy's going to be an all-NBA player in the next 2 seasons, and they can't let him go because he's a star in the making. Maybe, but I'm not 100% convinced. Can he stay healthy for a full season? Can he continue to play like that over the course of 82 games? We haven't seen it yet.
You know what's ironic is, for years, since I started covering the team, one of the internal comps that the organization has pointed to and wanted Watson to look at as far as his development was Jaden McDaniels. And Jaden McDaniels is kind of what you're talking about, where like he's not a star player, but he's become this very good, versatile role player who can be in. He's obviously a lockdown defender, as we just saw in this first round series. You can put him in the corner, and he shot it very efficiently from 3 this season. He can do a little bit of creating on his own. He's not what you're depending on as an offense to create shots, but he can have that game here or there where he scores 30 in a closeout game in a playoff series, I guess. That's just not what he's going to do every night. But so I actually think that with time, that feels more appropriate as the...
And that's a good player to have. That's a really good player to have.
Yeah.
And certainly, I know some people would take him over Christian Brown right now, including somebody wearing a black New York Yankees hat sitting across from me. But
very rude of me to have not introduced Aaron Ontiveros when we started recording. Sorry, Aaron.
But I'll say this, and I said it in the last podcast. Christian Brown, this might be just the low water mark for him. Mm-hmm. You might have seen his worst season. He was injured the whole time. Clearly, by the end, the injuries had affected him mentally. And before that, he was ascending. If you remember the season before, people thought like this guy could end up being an all-star. That player still exists in my mind. Like it's not like that guy suddenly went away. And that guy's valuable too. I remember watching him one-on-one defend SGA well. I mean, you don't want that guy? It seems like a good guy to have.
He did defend Shea well throughout the course of that series. You're not wrong about that. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of hindsight bias right now, with kind of the sense that they should have extended Watson instead of Brown.
Which who could have seen that coming?
Some people will say they did, honestly.
Yeah,
will say that they saw the upside in Peyton Watson the entire time, and that Christian Brown was probably more of a high floor, low ceiling guy, and now he's kind of at his floor right now. So whatever. We have to look at the Peyton Watson value here to start everything, because I think you're right. Like $20 million per year is probably the low end of what he gets. $30 million seems like the absolute high end to me.
I could see some crazy team throwing money at him.
Yeah, that's if, the main teams with money to throw around in theory this summer are the Lakers, the Nets, and the Bulls. All three of whom could very well be interested in a player like that, a young wing who can
the Bulls
be a positive at both ends.
The Bulls are about to get that kid from North Carolina, so they don't need Peyton Watson.
I don't think that's true. I think that no matter what type of player you draft, there's always room in your organization for a athletic wing who can, on paper, be effective at both ends of the floor.
That is maybe the most valuable piece in the NBA now. Is an athletic wing that can do a bunch of things.
So the Nuggets, as is, right now they're around $213.8 million in payroll. That is already the fourth most expensive roster in the league for next season, and that is with 5 open roster spots going into next year. Luxury taxes projected at $201 million, first apron projected at $209 million, second apron around $222 million. Those are key numbers to guide us here. As you start to put together a plan for them to try and keep that number low, first of all, you've got Jonas Valanciunas.
Player option or team option?
So it's non-guaranteed salary with a guarantee date on July 8th. The full salary would be $10 million. What they have guaranteed him already is $2 million in order to push back the guarantee deadline, which basically gives them more flexibility to try and trade him or basically look at the options to get off his salary. He's not going to be on the roster next year. I think the most likely outcome, they could trade him to a team that's willing to take on his salary. They don't have a lot of tradable picks left. They have no tradable first-round picks other than this year's pick on draft day.
Can't trade that.
You can't trade that. Your second-round picks, I kind of just don't think it's worth burning more second-round picks to get off of him. I think the more likely and more sensible thing to do with him to make sure that you're not just wasting assets is to waive and stretch him. Think a much less extreme version of...
I hate the wave and stretch.
I understand that when it's Damian Lillard or
Bradley Beal.
These very extreme, kind of unprecedented versions of it that we saw last summer. But with Valanciunas, you would be waiving and stretching the $2 million guaranteed dollars across 3 years, which basically means that you would incur $666,000 in dead cap this year. That's not that big a deal.
Mark of the beast.
It's a little bit more that you have to work around, obviously, as you're trying to cut money. But my guess would be that they waive and stretch him, and they live with the $600,000 basically. So let's say they do that instead of keeping his $10 million. That helps you cut $9 million in money basically. You pick up Jalen Pickett's option because his salary is going to be less than a veteran minimum's salary next year. He's about the cheapest version of a player that you can have on your roster, and you need those at the bottom of the roster. You use the 26th pick to basically add another cheap roster spot.
And maybe find somebody good. You never know. This is a really deep draft. They could get somebody at that level that maybe turns into a Christian Brown, or Peyton Watson was a 30.
Of course. You absolutely want to get someone who can become part of your rotation with that pick, but part of the motivation would be it's a cheap salary at the bottom of your books. I think it would be about the rookie salary scale for that would start at right around $3 million, maybe $3.1 million.
By the way, I think Oklahoma City is a great example of using those sorts of contracts to balance their sheet. They do that really well.
Although even they're going to be in an interesting spot this offseason.
They're going to have to trade a guy.
Their payroll is about to spike, whether it's Hartenstein or Lou Dort, those are kind of the most likely guys, I think, but we'll see.
They could trade J-Dub if they wanted to. Do they really need him? I don't know. It seems like they're pretty good without him.
It'll be an interesting summer for them. I actually think there's going to be a lot of trade buzz around the league this summer. It's going to be fascinating. So you use the 26th pick, you pick up the Jalen Pickett option, you waive and stretch Valanciunas, and let's say everything goes really ideally with Peyton Watson, and the other teams decide that they need to move on to other priorities with their offseason. You're able to really squeeze him and stretch it out, and you get him at an average annual value of $20 million.
That's the best case scenario, it
feels
like to me.
We have that sequence of things. Now you have $227.5 million in payroll with 4 open roster spots still. You have to fill a minimum of 3 of those roster spots. As we saw them do last year, they carried 14 players on the active 15-man roster for most of the season. So now with all of those things, which are done with money in mind, you now have to shed $26.5 million while also adding at least 3 players to get under the luxury tax, if that is your goal. So let's say they sign Bruce Brown and 1 other player to a veteran minimum, and now you're adding 2 guys at the cheapest possible cap hit of $2.45 million roughly. So you're adding guys. Now you still have to dump about $31.4 million in a league where, I have to remind you, there are currently more teams trying to get rid of money than take on more money. And
they don't have draft capital to attach to these big salaries to entice people to take their money.
Yes. So now you're dealing with, if you're trying to get under the tax, about $31 million that you have to dump, hopefully doing it in like 1 for 2, 2 for 3 type trades that fill the last roster spot at more dispersed, cheaper cap hits. And it's really difficult to do that. And so the reason that I told you before we started recording, I think they lose 2 key players, like 2 of their top 6 players this summer, is because of that. If you keep Peyton Watson, how are you going to dump that much money? Because you can't just say we're trading Aaron Gordon in a sheer salary dump. And
well, you could take back, sometimes they'll get the trade exception on the other end of it, which is basically a way of, I don't know what the cap is on how big a trade exception can be, but they could conceivably do something like that.
Yeah, but how many of the teams are just going to want to say, we're taking Aaron Gordon with a trade exception in that contract? We don't know what to expect.
I could see a team saying, we're taking Cam Johnson, who's got a expiring contract.
Sure.
And that way we'll basically be guaranteeing that we're shedding that salary at the end of next season. I could see that being something that they could do. And that's what, $28 million?
$23 million.
$23 million.
So that doesn't get you as far as you think. And then you still have to dump some money after that. So the salaries, and by the way, if you were to game out this whole situation and let Peyton Watson walk, your payroll still ends up around, and then you sign minimums, your payroll still ends up in a spot where you have to shed about $13.9 million while adding another player to get under the tax. So
Zeke Naji, come on down, Zeke Naji. But that's $8 million. So
this is why I say in all likelihood they're going to lose either Peyton Watson and still probably have to trade a key player to shed salary, or they keep Peyton Watson and have to trade 2 other starters, basically.
So here's the other part of it with Peyton Watson that they could do where it helps them out financially is they could do a sign and trade where they get back, a future first round pick or something like that.
Yeah, you can try to get back assets at least.
Yes. And I could see trying to do that with somebody like the Lakers. Some team that's a win now team or whatever, and at least you're not losing him completely for nothing.
Yeah, I think that is probably sort of the arrangement they would try to work out if they did not just keep him outright. So yes, you could get something back for him. And obviously, if they're starting to think about this from a 2028 to 2030 payroll perspective, because that's when they're going to be more willing to spend, then it helps to accumulate a few more draft assets maybe this summer so that you then have those assets to flip back for players and salary in those coming 3 years instead of the upcoming one. So here are the salaries. Everything's on the table except Jokic, to quote Josh Kroenke. So Jamal Murray, 50.
What do you think Jamal thinks about that when he hears that?
I know, it's fascinating, right?
That can't go over well in the Murray household.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
I'm on the table.
Yeah, it
too?
should offend him a little bit, right? After his best season of his career, minus the playoffs,
he did the thing that they asked, which was came in ready to play right away.
They haven't revealed All NBA yet, but I am pretty sure he's going to be second team.
He
was one of the 10 best players.
I'd be stunned if he isn't at least third team.
Yeah, he was on my second team ballot. I'll just say that. So he's $50.1 million next year on the books. I believe he's got 3 years left. Aaron Gordon, $32 million. He has a $10 million raise going into effect. He's got a few years on his contract. Cam Johnson, $23.5 $0.06 million. It's an expiring salary. Christian Brown, $21.6 million, first of a 5-year deal. I really just don't think they're going to be able to trade him.
And to trade him now would be dumb. This is basically as low as his value is ever going to be. Why would you trade him now?
Yeah, I think it stings to lose someone else because of that, but I think your best course of action is to lean on what he was a year ago and hope that he at least recoups his value next year to some extent. And then you have a drop off to Zeke Naji at $7.5 million next year. So I asked you, and I'm going to put you on the spot here because you have to start thinking about the biggest chunk salaries to get rid of. And it's like Murray, Gordon, and Cam Johnson, right? The thing about Cam Johnson that makes him less interesting for this discussion and probably more convenient for the Nuggets to trade, as we've touched on, is the fact that both contenders and tankers would probably be willing to take on that expiring salary and have a player like him on their roster next year. If you're a contender that needs shooting, he's a great guy to put in the corner at the very least and improve your spacing. We've seen a few teams struggle in the playoffs to kind of unclog their offense and find reliable three-point shooting. Not that Cam Johnson shot the three very well for Denver in that series, but
40% shooter this season, though.
43, in fact. He was 8th in the league. So obviously there's benefit for a contender. If you're a tanker just willing to take on salary or whatever, like we've seen him in Brooklyn be an 18-point per game guy. It's not like that turned them into a winning franchise. Suddenly it's a short-term commitment. It's not a massive salary. I think there are a lot of teams that you could get to take him. Gordon and Murray, I think, are very interesting for this prompt I've given you, which is what are the 5 teams that could benefit from them most? Because I think you have to find another team that's trying to win now to take either of those guys.
But here's the problem with Gordon, and you brought this up before. Why would you trade him now? Again, here's another guy where there are serious questions about his value going forward because he hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season for 3 years?
Really 2. He was pretty healthy the 24.
Yeah. So 2 straight seasons though, where and it's kind of the same stuff that leads to catastrophic injuries later on. Mm-hmm. I'll say top of the list for Murray, Toronto Raptors.
Okay.
Is there anything more obvious than Toronto Raptors and Jamal Murray? They desperately need a guy like Jamal Murray. Say what you will about Emmanuel quickly. He isn't Jamal Murray. Mm-hmm. And he's from the area, obviously. Mm-hmm. They probably would like to get a player like him.
Scoring guard who can run the offense.
Yes.
Very versatile at that end to help what was not a good half-court offense this season. Right. And in theory for them, Scotty Barnes is still on an upward trajectory from Toronto's point of view. So if you get to a point where you're contending a little more seriously for championships than you were this year, that formula probably involves Scotty Barnes having developed into your first option at that point. So Murray, it's a place where he fills a need perfectly and improves your offense and is able to be a premier featured player, but also might not have the burden of being the best player on that team.
I think for the first year he probably would be, though.
Maybe so, yeah.
He would probably be that guy. I could see the Orlando Magic being interested. The problem is what are you getting back from the Orlando Magic? Do you really want Suggs? That guy can't stay healthy either. And he can't shoot a lick. Let's see who else is out there. Portland might make sense.
Portland, interesting.
I
don't have them on my list, but I can see the argument, I guess.
You've got Drew Holiday.
They have Damian Lillard coming back, though.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about Damian Lillard.
That kind of gets awkward.
What a weird situation that is.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. If you're, let's say you're Milwaukee and you really want to keep Giannis.
That's not happening. That's just not happening.
Probably not. gosh, I'm trying to think of teams here. You could. I mean, what's going on with Jaylen Brown? Is he staying in Boston? Is that gonna? Is he happy being there? Would he be happy being number 2 to Nikola Jokic in Denver? Because it seems like there's a 1-for-1 there of Murray for Brown. Although I think you're taking back more salary, aren't you?
Their cap hits next year might be pretty comparable, actually.
He makes a lot of money.
I mean, so does Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray versus Jaylen Brown. So Jamal's $50.1 million, the same exact salary as Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell and Cade Cunningham next year. By the way, Jaylen Brown $57 million.
Yeah, more money.
Wow.
Yeah, he's so that's a tough one. Does Charlotte want a guy? I don't think so. I think
it's an interesting team to bring up. I don't think Murray is the right guy.
No, and I also think that you kind of want to see what you have with Ball for another season, with this team that's looks like it's on the rise, and they're going to have a number 14 pick to add to it.
He had a great season.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Mm-hmm. That whole team was fantastic. If they didn't start off as crummy as they did, they'd have probably made the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were the number 1 offense in the league for a decent chunk of the season. Yeah, I don't think Jamal Murray is what they're looking for immediately.
Does Atlanta make any sense?
You've now named 4 of the 5 teams on my list. So here's what I had.
CJ McCollum's not coming back in that situation, right? They're letting CJ McCollum go if they're bringing in Jamal.
Yeah, I mean, here's the idea with all of these teams is you want a team that is already in a playoff position, that is trying to improve upon where they are as a win now team and needs a really good lead guard, basically, who can score and play make. And so I had the Raptors, the Hawks, the Magic, the Rockets, and the Celtics as kind of the top 5 there.
The Rockets would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also getting, I mean, conceivably, they're getting back A.A. Ron favorite, Rockford's own.
Fred VanVleet.
Fred Van Vliet.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, Jamal Murray is an obvious upgrade.
He's obviously an upgrade, yeah. Fred VanVleet obviously will help them a lot if they just kind of run it back and go with the roster that they had idealistically envisioned going into this season. And it was apparent to anyone watching them that they needed a point guard who could basically save Kevin Durant from having to be the lead ball handler, bringing the ball up and kind of initiating their offense, because Kevin Durant, for all of his strengths, is pretty wobbly still at playing out of blitzes and double teams.
You think so, huh?
As a distributor out of those situations. So it's not exactly the ideal form of your half-court offense to just have him getting trapped at half-court. You'd rather him catch closer to the basket somewhere, whether that's the three-point line or the elbow or the nail or whatever it is. So
you're saying you don't think Reed Shepherd is going to be Steve Nash, second coming? You don't think that's going to happen?
If they're envisioning great Canadian point guards, why not go get Jamal Murray? So yeah, the Rock. Those are kind of the initial teams. I had a couple others written down. Could you make a case for the Mavericks or the Jazz?
Kyrie's coming back next year for the Mavs.
Yeah, but if you're trying to kind of envision this thing, what you're building around Cooper Flagg, and Kyrie's a little bit more of a wild card right now as far as durability. You don't know what to expect coming off the injury. Yeah, sure. Throughout his career. I mostly mean in terms of availability and what he's going to look like coming off the injury. He's older than Jamal.
Yep.
Is Murray kind of the right type of point guard who's in his prime to maybe maximize the mini window that is Cooper Flagg's rookie contract, where I think Flagg is going to keep improving at a pretty exponential rate over the next 3 years, and he's going to be elite by the end of this contract. Do you try to get kind of a good both secondary scorer and setup guard for Cooper for the duration of those years.
I think I'd stick with Kyrie.
Okay, fair. I'm just trying to think of teams you could make the argument for. The Utah Jazz, a team that I think is about to get...
Would they trade him to Utah, though? That seems a little too close to home to send him to Utah.
Maybe so, yeah. It's a fair point.
I can't see them doing that. That's why I just kept thinking of East teams that they would send him to.
Yeah, I think it's fair to kind of envision the East more so than the West. But if it were going to be a West team, it would probably be a Mavericks, or I also had maybe like the Grizzlies written down.
You getting Ja Morant back for that?
I mean, if
Ja Morant,
not necessarily
Nikola Jokic.
saying that Denver gets Ja Morant back, but if they move on from Ja Morant this offseason, they draft someone that they envision becoming a star over the next 5 years with the number 3 pick after getting some nice lottery luck, and you want a kind of a lead guard who can be the stabilizer for the early years of that guy's career.
I just don't know what they would send back that would be in any way enticing.
Can play pick and roll with Zach Edey, throw lobs to him.
If he plays.
So anyway, those are kind of the teams I had in mind, maybe. Miami Heat, maybe. I don't know.
I think Toronto is at least like kind of interesting because you could get back players that make sense. Plus, I think that would probably be a situation where Jamal was actually kind of happy to go to Toronto. Although, who knows, maybe people don't want to go back home. Boston is intriguing, but I got to know what's coming back and how, like, do they have to attach Zeke Naji to make the salaries work, and how does that go? Again, just to reiterate, I wouldn't trade Jamal Murray. I would keep Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic together as long as I could. That's a championship winning 1-2. I don't know why you would break that up. And he's also sort of the perfect complement for a player like Nikola Jokic. But
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
But
apparently he's on the table.
I'm just saying they're thinking about this summer to some extent, at least from a financial standpoint.
I get it. So Aaron Gordon.
Gordon.
Gosh, this is a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aaron Gordon just works with so many teams that it's hard to like just pinpoint 5 specific teams that absolutely need a guy like that. But I think you're looking for teams that need some sort of defensive help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit of secondary playmaking.
Exactly. He adds offensive help too. This is the beauty of him. He's really good at both ends.
I just wonder, like, would you be trading him at a point where you wouldn't be maximizing return because of the injury questions? And that to me would bring pause.
Put on your Stan Kroenke hat here. You're not trying to maximize the return as far as players. You are trying to be cheap. That is the reason you're doing this.
Well, do you think teams are like banging down their door to trade for him right now?
And to maybe get more guys who will be durable and can be in your rotation. I don't know. I think despite the health questions, there are still enough teams that would be pretty intrigued by him. Again, I think it has to be win now teams. Like
Golden State?
What tanking team is going to take 30-year-old Aaron Gordon and multiple years of that contract?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It doesn't really...
Unless they were thinking we'll take him and flip him for something else later.
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah, here are the teams that I have listed. I have the Lakers.
I just don't know what you're getting back in that situation.
Well, the other thing about this, like, a lot of these trades would probably have to be 3 or 4 team trades because, as I've mentioned, there are not a lot of teams that are willing to take on more salary right now. The Lakers are actually one of the few.
Can you send Mr. Nugget to the Lakers? That
would sting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, quite a bit.
That would sting. But they would really benefit from him, wouldn't they?
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
They would. That's a great player for them. By the way, I put it out on the internet. I don't like Mr. Nugget nickname. I think it doesn't fit, and I'm sticking to that.
Shouldn't you have to draft
Yes,
guy?
I think you have to be drafted by that team. There is a Mr. Sonic that exists in the world. His name was Nate McMillan. He played all 12 NBA seasons with the Seattle Sonics. That's how you become Mr. Sonic.
Fair point.
Sorry for that.
Josh Kroenke actually got asked about Aaron Gordon with the Mr. Nugget parlance used in the question. To which he said, "Are you talking about Aaron Gordon?" And he was not sure which player was being referred to. So that was kind of an interesting moment.
That's a point for Kroenke in my mind.
Congrats to him for that.
Yeah.
And you have brownie points in Matt Schubert's book. The Pistons.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I could see that. Although
kind of a power forward upgrade from Tobias Harris, who is a UFA this offseason and could, he's a spot up shooter, so he should help your
Isn't Thompson
still.
Kind of that player though already?
Maybe,
He
but
can't
he's
shoot.
a very
He can't shoot
he's
like
a
Aaron.
very different physical type of player though.
Yeah.
Is kind of a more slender,
But he's still
athletic
young.
wing.
He's still young. He could fill out.
Sure, but Gordon's a power forward. Gordon's a real power
For sure.
forward,
For sure.
So him kind of in that Tobias Harris spot where he can maybe do a little bit more ball handling and playmaking. Harris is already making, I think, $26 million this year and is due for a new contract. So maybe Gordon would be in the same range as that anyway.
Are you paying Harris? He's on the downside of his career.
I actually don't. But he won them Game 7 against Orlando.
That's true. That's true. But I'm not giving that guy more than $20 million a year.
Maybe so. Yeah. I mean, maybe they're just able to keep him at a rate that they like, but they also have to deal with a very awkward, uncomfortable Jalen Duren.
Yes.
Free agency. That is going to be fascinating after he's probably going to be all NBA, but is having a terrible playoffs.
I think he's cost himself a lot of money in the last 3 weeks.
I think you're right. How do you ignore that? Yeah. How do you ignore the most important sample size of the year?
You can't.
Anyway, so I don't know. The Pistons occurred to me. Gordon fits in with the personality of that team too. He's got that edge to him. He's a lot of toughness. The Charlotte Hornets. You brought them up as a Murray team. I think they would make more sense as a Gordon team in the Miles Bridges spot.
Role. Yeah. Okay. I like Miles Bridges though.
I think Gordon's an upgrade from Miles.
But the player.
Yeah.
So I just had to get that in there.
Yeah. I think a lot of Nuggets fans would prefer that the Nuggets don't trade for Miles Bridges.
Yes.
Probably if they were to send Aaron Gordon to Charlotte, that Bridges were redirected somewhere else in that trade. But nonetheless, I think Gordon could fit very well there. And would sort of be the type of player that they need at the 4.
What a fun team they'll end up being next year.
Especially if they think that they are in a position to take another big leap next year. If they think they can be one of the 3 to 4 main contenders in the East, why not go for a guy like that?
I got to tell you, I think the East is going to be a bloodbath next year because the Pacers are going to be really good again.
Mm-hmm.
The Hornets are going to be really good. The Hawks could be really good. I don't think the Knicks are going to be done. The Celtics are going to be good. The Pistons are going to be good.
Who knows what's going to happen with the Cavs?
Cavs are kind of a wild card, but that's
Giannis could end up in Cleveland or any number of other contenders in the East.
It's for the first time in decades, the East might actually be demonstrably better than the West.
It's possible. The West would probably still have the top heavy advantage.
They'd
just
have OKC,
by virtue of OKC
and San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, the East should be a lot of fun next year. It should be tough. But there's no reason for the Hornets to think that they can't compete at the top of that conference.
No doubt. Yeah, they're on the ascendancy.
Probably more of a long shot, but I wrote down the Pacers.
They've got interesting players to send back. There's a bunch of different guys that would be great. If they'd have got that draft pick, which, let's pour one out for poor Pacers fans.
I know. I feel terrible for them. Just a team that absolutely deserved the good luck there and got completely hosed.
Yeah.
Brutal stuff. But,
For the Clippers of all teams.
I know. In their ideal form, Siakam has been their starting four, which clearly is effective. Like they were within a win of the championship last year. But he can play the 3 or the 4, really, if you wanted to get a little bit bigger. Gordon's a player who could fit with them.
I think he could fit with Zubac, too. I could see them working together okay.
Yeah, very much so. Probably less likely. I think they probably feel pretty inclined to mostly run it back, or if anything, to flip Obi Toppin for another role player or something like that. This, by the way, gets at another problem with a lot of these teams that we're mentioning. Like the Pacers have a pretty expensive payroll, and they're a team that historically doesn't pay the tax very much. Like, again, you have teams that are wanting to decrease payroll like Denver. So most of the trades that you could start to conceive of with any of these guys, you have to loop in third and or fourth teams. And it's really difficult to find stuff. Just as I was playing around on like the trade machine yesterday, it's brutal. It is a really difficult spot. I think this is also very unlikely, but the Spurs, if they wanted to get a little bit bigger,
Where are you getting back, like Harrison Barnes?
I don't know. I mean, again, you could be getting back something from a third team here. You're getting back cheaper players than Aaron Gordon is the key. You are getting worse with all of these trades. I can't accentuate that enough.
Right.
But yeah, like the Spurs are a team that you could interest in taking him. Again, do you want to trade him to one of your main adversaries right now in the West? Probably not.
This feels like a very depressing podcast for Nuggets fans.
I know. It's not.
None of these things are about improving the roster. I do still think like you do whatever you can to keep Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and Aaron Gordon on the roster together, like to take another shot or two. I just feel like that threesome is a championship threesome, and you want to have them together. But I understand the salary implications and everything like that.
My hunch, if they kept those three, if they ran it back with those three, so to speak, as Josh Kroenke was kind of saying, there are a lot of forms of running it back, a lot of different various ways to run it back. If they did that, there's a decent chance they lose both Cam Johnson and Peyton Watson, I think. Just looking at the money.
Of all of the situations, I could probably live with that the most. I know, like, people are just like dreaming on Peyton Watson in a way that I understand. He was really good for that period of time, but like that, there's no guarantee that that's the player that's going to be playing for the next 10 seasons. Now he could be. Who knows? He could be the next great complementary wing player. But I think you are making a bit of a gamble if that's what you're projecting.
Very fair. I also just had written down Warriors, Suns, Clippers as potential Gordon ones, but so anyway, my point with all of this, which has basically been like the entire episode, is like you're in this awkward spot with particularly Gordon and Murray if you're going to trade one of them, where you have to find specific teams that are willing to take on that contract and can benefit from having that player in the immediate future, and then go from there, and then probably find another team that's willing to take salary going from one of the two teams in the trade. And then maybe there's a fourth team involved. Like, it is really complicated, really difficult, and probably does not result in the Nuggets being a better team in 26-27 than they were this year. So you're right. That's why it's depressing. As for Cam Johnson, I think like almost all the teams we mentioned, I think like Cavaliers, Magic,
I think he fits on pretty much
Blazers,
every team because he's what every team needs, which is a wing who can shoot threes and defend all right.
Yeah.
Like that's you can find a home with that player pretty easily, and expiring contract.
Yeah. It would obviously help a ton if they can find a way to get off Zeke Naji somewhere in this summer. I think
the original sin of our man Calvin Booth.
I think that the Nuggets are going to be on the phone with the teams that are involved in the Giannis trade. I think they're going to try to find a way.
Can we find a way to throw Zeke Naji into this and get back a basketball or maybe a new net to put up in Ball Arena?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's an opportunity to get off that kind of money in that type of trade. Maybe Milwaukee could even be a team that would be interested in taking Zeke Naji as a team that's about to go into the absolute cellar probably, and might as well take a chance on someone like that where it's like the contract doesn't really hurt you if you're Milwaukee for the next couple of years. See if he can keep developing somehow as this big / wing who can defend a lot of different positions on the perimeter. You have nothing to add about Zeke Naji?
I'm out on Zeke. I think
he gave him a few good minutes in one of those playoff games.
Yes, he did. He did. And who knows? Maybe he falls in the right position and flourishes. I've been hearing about Zeke Naji development for 4 or 5 years now, and it just never has happened. At least not within the Nuggets. Now, hey, Josh Hartenstein. He didn't play with the Nuggets, and then he went on.
Josh Hartenstein?
I'm sorry, not Isaiah Hartenstein. I'm thinking of Josh Hartnett, I think is what I was thinking of.
That's really funny. Or simply Josh Hart.
Oh, yeah, Josh Hart, too. A lot of Josh Harts out there. Think about that. Anyway, I don't see the Isaiah Hartenstein future for him, but who knows?
Yeah, very fair.
You think Mike Malone wants that one back? He's like maybe the cornerstone post Malone player.
Probably. You're probably right. You know who Michael Malone wants back is Colin Gillespie. If he could get Colin Gillespie another year of eligibility at the University of North Carolina next season,
sign him up.
Then he would be all in on that, I
think. The other thing that I saw coming out of the presser last week, if you're hoping or you were hoping that Adelman was going to get fired, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Ain't happening.
Yeah, I had heard during the series that he was probably safe. Obviously, part of it, I think, is that they don't want to pay another coach to not coach. But I also think even if you remove money from the situation there, it has not been the Kroenke's MO to just impulsively fire someone super early in their tenure. And I just don't think they like the idea of sort of the instability surrounding a 1-year tenure with him and then moving on to find someone else. And it just feels like you're throwing crap at the wall for a coach that works. And look, the players like Adelman, Jokic pretty adamantly defended him after Game 6. Jamal Murray described him as amazing. We've heard the word genius thrown around by players throughout the season. I understand there's a lot of reason to be frustrated with Adelman and everyone else over a pretty embarrassing first-round exit. But
it would have been good for them to have found other ways to get Jokic in better positions to score in that series. I think you can definitely say that he did not maximize Jokic in the way that he could have in that series. Yeah,
Adelman admitted to something in that press conference that I think I might have pointed out the last time we recorded, which was basically that that Denver was playing too much 2-on-2 with Jokic and Murray against Gobert and McDaniels throughout the course of that series, and Minnesota feels comfortable playing 2-on-2 with those two guys.
With their two best defenders.
And staying home more so on Denver's shooters. And I think that kind of helps add up to the massive drop-off in Denver's three-point shooting because Cam Johnson and Tim Hardaway aren't feasting on wide-open shots quite as much as they were in the regular season. And then when you're making wide-open shots, that gets you into more of a rhythm for some of the semi-contested and contested looks. That life was just more difficult on Jokic and Murray because they were spamming the two-man game against the two best defenders in the series too much. And so that was an area where they could have done a lot better for sure, just systematically.
So if they don't beat the Spurs in the last game of the season and they play that 4-5, Did they just get swept by the Thunder in the second round?
It's possible. It's possible.
Thunder look like a machine right now.
8-0. I kind of think they could.
It's hard to guess with the.
I kind of think they can beat the Spurs or the Wolves in 5, though. They're just that much better than everyone right now.
If you're the Thunder, you want the Wolves to win that series.
Yeah.
I would not want any part of the Spurs.
I think that's fair. I think they could take care of the Spurs too. I really think.
I think they can beat the Spurs. I mean, obviously they can beat the Spurs, but I think the Spurs are probably the best chance to take them out.
Who gives them the most interesting finals of the three remaining teams?
It's the Knicks.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the Knicks have a ton of wings. Now, this is assuming that OG Anunoby is actually healthy for the finals. If he's healthy, I think that's actually a really good series. The Knicks are a wagon right now. They're killing teams. And yes, it was the 76ers who were probably a bit fraudulent. And yes, it was a young Hawks team, but like beating teams by 25, 30 points in elimination games, like back to back like that, that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they've looked extremely convincing after I thought most of the year that they were a little unconvincing, honestly. I've
NBA Cup winners?
I've had a lot of skepticism about the Knicks for all of this year and last. And I still think they could lose to Detroit or Cleveland.
Oh, they're going to win that series. I put the money down right now. They're going to the finals.
Okay. Knicks Thunder. I don't know.
That'd be fun.
That doesn't do it for me.
I'd enjoy that series.
Okay, yeah.
Small town Hicksville versus Big Apple.
And yet the Big Apple, the big market team will be the national rooting interest probably because everyone is so sick of the Thunder.
Nobody can stand the Thunder. Nobody. Basically, there's a small, circle around Oklahoma City of people that actually want them to win, and then the rest of the country's like, forget these guys.
I kept seeing it pointed out to me that the Thunder have somehow managed to make the Lakers the good guys in the battle for ref politics during a series.
Well, I mean,
who would have thought that could happen?
I think part of that was probably because Luka wasn't playing. If Luka was playing, it would have been evened out a little bit.
Yeah. Can I give you I might have actually sent you this via text while we were in Minnesota, while Aaron and I were out of town. But I was just thinking about if the Nuggets wanted to really rethink various ways to protect Jokic defensively in the future. And they decided that they can't trust the durability of Aaron Gordon and they want to move on from him and find other backline defending and at a cheaper salary, perhaps. What would you think of a world where Jokic was the Nuggets starting 4 and they got kind of a traditional rolling lob threat shot blocker 5 to put next to him, a very vertical center?
Can that guy shoot at all?
Maybe not.
I don't know if
most of these players who are the archetype that I just described to you are not good shooters.
Yeah.
You have certain, I think Donovan Clingan and Walker Kessler, a couple of the young ones have tried to turn themselves into shooters to make themselves a little more diverse. So maybe those are the perfect ideal version of it, but neither of those teams are giving up those guys, I don't think.
Yeah, I just have a hard time seeing him and Rudy Gobert playing together or somebody like that.
Well, obviously the peak version of it is Wemby and Jokic and Wemby as a front court together would be insane.
That's a championship.
And they would, I think they would perfectly complement each other's strengths and weaknesses as bigs. So obviously that's not happening, but this school of thought led me to Jared Allen. If Cleveland were to lose this series and they're making a lot of changes to their roster this offseason, let's say they bring in LeBron, they move Evan Mobley to the 5.
Evan Mobley.
And you could start to structure a trade with 3 or 4 teams around Cam Johnson to Cleveland and Jared Allen to Denver. and maybe Aaron Gordon is in the trade going to a third or fourth team.
I mean, that's an interesting thought exercise. I could see that kind of working. Jokic can shoot, so your floor spacing still works. You probably can't post up Jokic as much, although maybe he finds ways to lob the ball to Allen and they get dunks out of it, and it actually does work.
This is the thing. You can run a lot of like pick and roll with Jokic as the ball handler, which they like to do anyway, but like an actual good 7-foot screener rolling and catching lobs from him, that would be kind of sick. Yeah. Or you could put Jarrett Allen in the dunker within sort of the 2-man game with Jamal and Joker. You could run lineups, obviously, with only one of the bigs on the floor, and have different styles to that.
Yeah, I could maybe see that.
I kind of liked it the more I thought about it. I was like that, and you find a way to get like Aaron Gordon to, let's say you send Aaron Gordon to Charlotte. You send Cam Johnson to Cleveland. You end up with like Jarrett Allen and Trey Mann, and Miles Bridges goes to a tanking team with picks or something.
Yes.
With picks from the other teams involved in the trade, like Memphis or something, gets Miles Bridges. Congrats. And you can accumulate some more draft assets out of it. And then you have a starting lineup. You've cut your payroll a bunch with that, and you have a starting lineup with like Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic, and Jarrett Allen.
That's a fun lineup. That's a really good defensive lineup.
It would be a different way of thinking about things. I don't know if like you're winning the championship with that, but it would be an interesting way to kind of experiment with different styles around Joker next season. Yeah. And
that
the spacing could be rough, but like
that might be the best defensive starting five that the Nuggets have had since
right. Like you have Brown and Watson together as these kind of athletic
and a rim
wing
protector,
defenders,
which they've never had in the Jokic era, other than like I guess you could kind of say Aaron Gordon was that guy.
Yeah, this is the thing with Aaron Gordon. Like he's a really good and smart backline defender, and he's really good at challenging shots, but he's just not super vertical anymore. Like he's not just going to deny stuff at the rim.
He's no longer dunking over the Magic mascot. Those days are over.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think that would kind of be one fun way to rethink this if you wanted to get a little radical. And like, and maybe it doesn't work and you lose in the first round again, but the Kroenkes, it helps the Kroenkes get under the tax for a year, and now you know what doesn't work, and you're getting ready to pay the tax again for the next couple years after that, and you have ways to rework the roster again. I'm just saying, like, if they want to be a little bit shamelessly cheap this season and really change the makeup of the roster, why not try something like that gives you like a different set of data and a different sample of the types of lineups and rosters that you can put around Joker.
Yeah. I just like Jokic and shooting.
Very fair. They had Jokic and shooting this year is the problem.
They did. They did. It's going to be an interesting offseason. There's so many teams, and I think that the change in the tanking rules is actually going to affect things a little bit. I don't think tanking's going to stop entirely.
I don't think it's going to stop entirely, but I think there's going to be an initial wave of increased competitiveness at the bottom of the league with these regulations being introduced, combined with what's apparently understood to be a very weak draft class in 2027.
Yes, correct.
It's not going to be the extravaganza that we've had for the last 3 months leading into this class.
I think the only way they end tanking is if they do like the draft wheel, which they'll never do, but they probably should.
Yeah, or just you get rid of the draft.
Think about how much fun the draft wheel would be. That would be such a good time. Like you'd know, like okay, the Nuggets have the number 1 pick in 2035. Maybe you could trade that. Maybe like there's all these like really interesting trades and planning and stuff that would come into that particular setup. That is so much different than now. You know the actual placement of the pick that you're trading for. You'd probably attach a certain value to that because of where it is in that particular draft. I don't know. I think that's better than what they're doing right now.
Okay.
Because tanking's not going to go away. I don't see tanking going away with what they're doing.
Yeah, probably fair. I don't think it's ever going to go away. It doesn't bother me that much. Is that a bad thing to say?
I think, okay,
there are bad teams every year.
Yes, there
someone
are.
has to be bad.
Yes, but there's a difference between there being bad teams every year and there being teams that aggressively are trying to lose games.
The thing is, the players on the floor aren't.
No, they aren't, but there's a way to configure the players on the floor where that doesn't matter.
But it didn't affect the product when the Nuggets played the Jazz a couple times late in the season, because the Jazz, despite their chicanery that earned them the number 2 pick, congratulations to Utah.
Big one for them.
They had guys who played with like a real competitive fire against Denver a couple times in games that the organization wanted to lose.
I think that like when you combine the tanking problem with the proliferation of sports gambling, I think that's really problematic.
Yeah, I think the gambling is where, but I also think that tanking becomes like almost like the red herring. Like what's the freaking phrase? Is there a red herring? Isn't there a phrase? It's the MacGuffin of the situation for the league. Like, look over here at this big problem we have, while the real problem is the gambling stuff.
Gambling.
Yeah.
But to me, the tanking
and they're intertwined for sure.
Exacerbates that problem. And if you're trying to sell tickets, if you're trying to get people interested in the league on a day-to-day basis, looking at the schedule and being like, I know exactly what the outcomes are going to be for all these games based upon tanking. And like, there were many of those where there's like 10 games and you're like, 8 of these, I know exactly what's going to happen. Only 2 of these are interesting competitively. That's a bad situation for the league. They need to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the point is there are going to be fewer walkovers for Denver in the regular season. And that's one of the concerns is they won 54 games this season with ideal circumstances, with a lot of teams trying to lose. You're not going to get as many of those freebies next year.
No.
In addition to everything else. And it's not like the top of the league is getting worse either. So I kind of have a hard time. I asked Josh this, like, if they weaken their roster this summer, I have a hard time believing that they're a serious championship contender next year.
Yeah. All right, before we go, who's you're sticking with OKC as the champion?
Yes.
I said Spurs last time. I kind of want to say Knicks.
Knicks?
Kind of want to say Knicks.
I don't think they're winning it.
They got all those wings.
Great.
They can just throw so many wings at you.
I think Brunson and Cat will have a hard time against either of those defenses that come out of the West.
Can I just say this? What the Knicks have done using Cat is almost like a Jokic light in their offense with passing and everything.
I really like Cat.
That's fantastic. I don't know what took them so long to get there, but
Cat's a great player who I think has been scapegoated a few too many times throughout his career.
And probably not used in the right way in many situations. Like, this is the first time I can remember where the offense was kind of running through him rather than doing the, hey, let's have Brunson just dribble around forever.
Right. But you can play him in pick and roll, pick and pop with Brunson too, and he's awesome at that. Like, you can have him play his face-up game sometimes. Like, some of the elbow stuff. Like, they've found ways to be versatile with him.
I think if Anunoby is healthy, they're going to be tough because Anunoby is darn good. I don't know if you've been watching them, but he has been fantastic when he's been playing. And Mikal Bridges has gotten over whatever situation he had at the start of the playoffs.
Right. You'll notice I didn't have the Knicks as could benefit from Aaron Gordon team. They kind of have their perfect version of that with Anunoby right now.
Oh, yeah. I like him. I think he's a heck of a player.
Yeah, he's really good. Really good. We'll see. I have a hunch that the Thunder will just kind of walk to the title. But
it's just, Daryl Morey, do you really have to gift McCain to them? Like what is that? The one team that you're gifting McCain to, the one that's already got a wealth of talent, they've got rookies that they're not even playing. First-round picks piled up like candy in the background, and you're just giving them that guy, and then giving them extra motivation by saying that you sold high. Thanks,
yeah, that's
Daryl.
brutal.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah, they're going to be a problem for a long time in the NBA. I guess like you said last time, the real formula to Denver being a contender is probably key injuries to OKC in one of these years. So,
yeah,
so we'll see what happens.
But even that, like J-Dub got injured, they're fine. They got more than enough guys to fill those roles. But they're going to have to make some moves. Somebody's going to have to go this summer, because I don't see them.
This is what I'm saying. They've got an interesting offseason. There are a lot of teams that are kind of going to be at crossroads in various ways, whether it's with their payroll or their viability as a contender. And it could make for, obviously, Giannis headlining everything here. Like, there could be a lot of interesting movement between actually good teams, I think. But we'll see how it goes. Should be an interesting summer for Denver. Sorry for the depressing podcast.
Yeah. Well, let's give them one little piece of hope. Somebody in the back of the first round that the Nuggets could get that you think would actually make an impact.
I haven't looked a ton at draft stuff just yet. But gosh, I feel inclined to just say find another really athletic wing who can handle the ball a little bit. Like handling and defense, I think, are two key areas, and the draft is an easy way to pick the skill sets you want to improve at and improve at them. So I don't know. I just haven't looked at like the guys who are going to be available in that range. I don't know if you have any in mind.
I don't. I've looked at through the draft and maybe there's a guy that tumbles. Like one guy, like if somebody were to tumble, like the was it Landenberg from Michigan? If there was a
I
way,
have a feeling he'll go
at
least like late lottery.
Wouldn't that guy be like perfect for what they need?
Of course. I mean, like, Adelman's big on the ball handling thing, that they feel like they need more. And maybe that's just a more reliable backup point guard for Murray. Like, I don't know. Is Bennett Sturts kind of a mid to late 20s guy? Like, just a good pick and roll player that you could add there? I don't know. We'll see. They probably need to try to get better defensively, though.
Maybe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the second round.
Gosh, I have no idea if he has draft potential.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'll start looking at that stuff in the next few weeks. There's some time before the draft, but we'll see. Should be an interesting summer, both for Denver and around the league. Thank you for doing this, Matt.
Always a pleasure.
And for sticking up for running it back.
They got a roster. They got a team.
And yeah, we'll see you next time. Maybe we'll record again whenever the next time is that there are serious developments with their offseason. But
after the draft.
Probably after the draft, right around that time. This has been Nuggets Inc. Thanks for joining us.
Master Ace, spitting the burning passion is about to be a catastrophe. Thought I was the only survivor, but at last we meet. Like the food vegans don't eat. I know you can see the infernal blaze. We would probably burn the stage and leave it with 3rd degrees. And inside of us is an eternal blaze, blazing eternally like a furnace. But it's so hot it's burning the furnace's frame. Your family and furniture isn't safe. Better evacuate, cause the skill we can calibrate reduces the chances of your survival if you ever try to retaliate. So dance to this recital so you can slowly gravitate towards us. Who needs a chorus when you're hotter than Earth's core is? No strings attached with no puppets, yo, we're cordless. I fly even when I'm hurt, yo, that's soaring. Your skill isn't apparent, it's an orphan. We proceed to spit the verse that takes your spirit and lifts it high into the earth's atmospheres. Don't come atmosphere of influence, you squares. I take a spear and put it through you, I raise the stakes high. Medium rare, you're the least of the media's fears. Why he's the reason the media's scared. Please be prepared to be impaired. Go see repairs, defeating people in pairs. Jordans, I thought I needed pairs to be compared to the people in pairs.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Gather round hip hoppers as if you're still living. Still got love for the game, I'm still giving and still driven. Like Diddy in the Maybach. I've been reppin' for the city since way back. All y'all rappers better stay back, cause you still can't find me. I'm a needle in a haystack, a rare breed sitting high up in the chariot. What y'all do is getting high up in the Marriott. Well, consider this your wake-up call. If you're married to the game, this the breakup call. And you ain't wearing a crown if you're not tearing it down. You clowns get found right there in the ground. 6 feet, dirt nap, that's because your shit's weak. I'm a giant, you a pipsqueak. Welcome to my kingdom, yup, the throne has an occupant. Read my name at the bottom of the document. Check the scroll, I'm giving good times like Esther Roll. Peace to Keithy E, God bless the soul. Trying to get more checks to hold. On some slick Rick, Mr. T shit, big chest of gold. And the flow's still extra cold, like the North Pole, cocaine snow, another lost soul. Bow down, it's the Grand Royal, yup. 20 plus years in the game, and still the fans loyal.